This film does feel like they're paying homage, and it's like a love letter to Kevin Feige for a number of reasons.
Crazy Stupid Podcast.
Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, if this is your first time watching, we'd love it if you could hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell so that you are aware of when we post things.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Crazy Stupid Podcast. My name is Esther. This is my husband.
I'm Adrian.
We just came back from seeing the new Deadpool movie, Deadpool and Wolverine.
I guess we can do first half, non-spoiler.
Okay.
So there's a lot of conversation about, is Deadpool going to like save the MCU? I don't know if I would go that far, but I will say it definitely feels like a love letter to Kevin Feige. There's a lot of things that show up in this film that feel very much like you're sort of paying homage to this legacy that he's built over like the last like 30 years really, because he's had his hand in a lot of projects. Even as the credits are rolling, they're sort of showing some things here where like in the back of my mind as I'm watching this, I'm like, Kevin Feige's legacy goes beyond just what we got from Iron Man up until Endgame. It exceeds a lot of that.
Yeah, I would agree. Save the MCU, I guess, does seem a little bit extreme, but it gives the MCU a chance to feel self-aware about the mistakes that it has made over the past few years since Endgame.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of nods to those films and like things that have happened in between, and it does do a good job of acknowledging like we know like we had some misses here and there. Because it's Deadpool, they can do that. I don't know if it saves it, feels like a lot, but it does kind of help, I guess, resolve. It's like a nice resolution, I feel like, of like, okay, we get it, we know we've kind of fumbled here and there, we get it, we know we fumbled, we messed up, but like we can still have a good time and we don't have to like retcon everything that we've done to do it. We just acknowledge it, we just keep it pushing.
Yeah, I thought the action was incredible. The acting was incredible. There's a few standouts that I would like to mention, but we're keeping this spoiler free. But what I can say is Hugh Jackman did his thing. There are a few moments where I actually appreciate the director let him act. You don't always get those moments in some of the Marvel movies. In this one, I appreciated that they gave him a few moments. Other things that I liked, I mean, the humor is spot on. It's hard to guess how much is in the script and how much is just like, here, Ryan, just let you do your thing. But nonetheless, like it's always good.
Perfect person for the job.
Yes, 100%.
Nobody else could have done it like this, I don't think.
I think if you are a Marvel fan, you are going to absolutely love this film. I think if you're going in there as like a film bro kind of fan,
maybe skip this one.
Yeah. The plot is not as strong as maybe some would like, but there's so much other good stuff happening. I didn't feel like I was unsatisfied because of it, if that makes sense.
There's a lot of Easter eggs for people who have like been real zoned in since the beginning. You watch every single MCU project, like you don't miss it. It's a Deadpool movie. Like, I don't know. I'm not expecting like groundbreaking narrative.
No,
I don't know.
The antagonist I don't think was as strong, but I think they did their job.
I would agree with that. I really like that actress. She could act down.
Yes.
It's just a classic superhero movie villain, you know, a little kooky, a little over the top. That's just what it is.
Yeah. Overall, great film. I think it's going to make a bunch of money because people are just very excited to have a good time. I don't know if I would go as far as to say that like it's about to save the MCU, which I've seen a few people say. I wouldn't go that far.
It depends on what they mean by save the MCU. I think that some of the like, you know, shocks that happen in the movie, once like word of mouth starts spreading about some of that stuff, I think a lot of people will go to see it and like will come up with a positive view on the film. So like maybe that like in a sense is sort of like saving the MCU. Like it's like, okay, like we're enjoying Marvel movies as a collective. Like we're coming out and we're having good things to say.
Yeah.
Which is like kind of not been the
consistent.
Like there's a couple things from the past few years that stand out, but like that's not been the norm, I would say, for the past few years. So it maybe like saves it in that way, that it's like people are actually really excited about a Marvel movie and like everybody who's going to see it is genuinely enjoying it.
Yeah, it is very nostalgia driven. I will say that. And so again, there are these moments where like, because we have been Marvel fans for a very long time, like we were shouting, we were screaming, we were laughing, but I know that there are a few people in front of us that were like really quiet because they're probably like, wait, who is that? I don't know who that's supposed to be. Like, there's no emotional attachment to it, which is partly why, if you're an MCU fan, it's going to hit a little different.
I feel like, though, you can still have fun, even if
100%.
you don't get everything, because, like, the humor is just top notch. Like, you will laugh.
Yeah. All right. So we're about to jump into spoiler section. So if you have not seen this film, we are asking that you pause this video and then come back once you're done. All right. So spoiler thoughts. Holy shit, dude.
I had no expectations for any cameos at all. I don't know why. I was just like, I feel like Wolverine is enough. And so, like, I had no expectations to see anybody besides him. Yeah, I was like, this is a big deal all on its own. But the second that he was talking to the TVA guy and he was like, so we're doing the full thing, you know, full of the cameos, I was like, I kind of sat up a little bit. I was like, I'm interested to see who they pull out.
I remember when we were sort of recapping like the phase 4 stuff and we talked about Multiverse of Madness, and I remember saying I think Deadpool is going to be what people were hoping Multiverse of Madness was going to be, and I think this is kind of what it was. Like, we got some cameos in Multiverse of Madness, but they were just kind of there so that Wanda could flex her powers, and then like instantly like they were gone. Whereas at this one, the relevance for them showing up, that's a little bit outside of just the narrative in the story. They played a bigger role, and I think fans will appreciate that a little bit more.
I definitely agree.
That is our cat.
I think that the problem with what they did in Multiverse of Madness is they pulled huge cameos, like big characters that are like really important and have like a hold on like in the MCU fandom and culture. Mm-hmm. And then like they just kind of like tossed them aside. And it was like, why would you bring in a Professor X to do that? That's the problem. What I feel like Deadpool did really well is they were huge cameos and that they were huge callbacks, but the characters themselves don't have a lot of relevance now in the MCU. And so like it works better as just a cameo, as a like, you know, you're showing up and like you may not be here for the full run. Like even what they did with, major spoiler right now, if you haven't left yet, leave now. But even what they did with Chris Evans is like, having a Cap cameo, I think, is a lot. Okay, like he's like a major character. He's a fan favorite, and like he just left, so it feels a little soon. I honestly was shocked when it was actually Chris Evans. I thought they were setting us up to disappoint us. But having Chris Evans cameo as what's his name, Johnny from the Fantastic Four. That is perfect. Yeah. Because that's a character that's like, it's cool to see him. Like, you're kind of like, oh, shoot, I remember you. But it's not too much. Yeah.
And it doesn't feel as fan servicey because we hadn't gotten to that character in like decades, really. Like 2 decades, really. As opposed to if it was Captain America, to feel like, come on, y'all. Like, we just had him. It feels like you're kind of telling MCU, like, we're trying to, you know, coddle you a little bit because you haven't learned how to let go. Yeah. This film does feel like they're paying homage, and it's like a love letter to Kevin Feige for a number of reasons. He had a hand in all of this.
Yeah, I think I forget that he was in those, he was in the older Daredevil. Yeah. He was all of that
His name, when we went and rewatched the Daredevil, like his name shows up as a producer.
And he also, was he also doing the X-Men?
He was involved in the X-Men. He had involvement in some of the Spider-Man films.
Fantastic Four?
Fantastic Four. Yes. So all of that. He had this vision of wanting to create this massive Marvel world like well into the 90s. It's just that we hadn't gotten there yet, you know, and there had been some hits, there had been some misses, but I think this feels like Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman and the director for the film is their way of just like showing their appreciation, particularly with Hugh Jackman, because the two of them, like, they were at it like from the very beginning, really. And Hugh kind of talked about this when Kevin Feige, he just got his star in Hollywood.
Kevin Feige did? Oh.
And Hugh Jackman kind of gave a bit of a speech of like when he first got casted as Wolverine, Kevin bought him like some food at like a steakhouse. And so he kind of plays a bit of a joke and like gives him a $15 gift card at that same restaurant as like a bit of like a funny, but like also like a thank you. Like, my career jumped after I got this role. The more I started to see more characters characters, like, spoilers if you haven't stopped watching yet, when you see Elektra, when you see Johnny Storm, when you see Blade, when you see all of those other X-Men that sort of showed up, like Hazazel was there, and obviously Channing Tatum and Juggernaut. Yeah, all of that. All of this just feels like, listen, Kevin, you created this nearly $30 billion empire that honestly played a pivotal role in making that kind of fandom like very mainstream. And this felt like they were saying thank you to all of that. I appreciated that, you know, because he's a nerd at heart. You can tell.
Yeah, because some of these are like deep cut
comic
book characters. In addition to like paying homage to Kevin Feige and what he's done, I also feel like it's just an acknowledgement of like the legacy of some of these films that like we kind of clown on now, because it's like pre-MCU like superhero movies were like very, very hit or miss. Not to say that they're not hit or miss now, like they still are, but like it was
more misses.
Yeah, you know, like, and there's a lot of those movies that like we don't talk about at all anymore. And so I feel like it's also nice to just do like a little callback of like, even if some of these movies maybe they didn't age like fine wine, maybe they weren't the biggest box office hits, they're still a part of like how we get to something like the MCU.
Exactly.
Also, and the Blade movies, like, put some respect on their name, for real. I also appreciated that too, of like getting to bring those people back to play those roles that like maybe at the time it kind of got, you know, whatever, shrugged off as like, oh, it's a flop, oh, whatever. But it's like, no, like they're still fun, they still matter, and they're also still a part of like the story of like the MCU and how it comes to be.
Yeah. I think what I love is that throughout this film, there is this theme of like giving characters their ending. And I love that they chose these characters that are sort of forgotten in this Marvel cinematic world and gave them their ending. That I really appreciate it. So for a number of reasons that are outside of just the film, but like Channing Tatum wanting to, spoilers by the way, but wanting to be Gambit, like that was something that he was really looking forward to, and just things didn't work out. And I remember reading articles where he was like very distraught that he couldn't play Gambit. Like that was very sad for him. The same thing with like Elektra. I think what we saw with her, and them at least mentioning the Ben Affleck Daredevil, which it wasn't the greatest film, but again, this felt like, okay, we're acknowledging we couldn't perfectly land the plane with that film, so we're going to bring that character back so that we can have some remembrance and giving her character an ending. And then I'd like to add Mr. Blade himself, which is very important because Marvel almost went under. Marvel Studios almost went under if it wasn't for those Blade films. But I feel like, again, people kind of forget about it just a little bit. And so bringing them back not only gives them a proper ending, but it also gives them the proper recognition in the role that they played in how we can finally get something like an Endgame, because it all kind of mattered, even if some of them didn't land as well as others did. And I really appreciated that, you know.
It's such a good tie-in to the literal plot of the film too, because literally like the entire movie takes place in a void where like forgotten, useless useless variants are put, like people that like literally in the same way that these films have just kind of been like, they're in a void. It's like people don't really know what to do with those MCU movies that aren't MCU, like those Marvel movies that are like before this, we really got the ball rolling on this thing. So it's such a good tie-in for those characters.
Yes. One other thing that I was sort of thinking about, and maybe this is just more of like a chronically online sort of take when it comes to like films, but there's a lot of fans that were kind of frustrated that Hugh Jackman decided to come back to the MCU to make this film. I don't think this taints his legacy in any way, the way that some of you guys are sort of making it seem. Primarily because it does feel like a lot of these actors love to be a part of this entire thing. It feels like Kevin Feige has tried his best to create an environment where it is a very extremely fun time for them. And Hugh has actually gone on record in interviews where it says like he has felt like rejuvenated because he's excited at the idea of him being a part of this larger thing now. Like he can have scenes with Spider-Man. He can finally fight against the Hulk, which they teased at in this film. I don't know. I feel like that kind of like gets left out of it a little bit. Like sometimes I feel like these actors are just as big of fans of this thing as we are, and they would love to be a part of this thing that feels larger than them. And I got the sense that Hugh Jackman was really looking forward because he probably felt like he's kind of sort of at this at the beginning the same way that like Feige was, and they probably, I'm imagining they may have had a lot of talks about a lot of what ifs if we could do this scene and that scene. And I think he's probably thinking, I don't want to miss out on that now that I have the opportunity to be a part of it.
Yeah.
You know?
That's very fair, especially because like the only thing that kept them from being able to be a part of it was like licensing rights.
Yeah,
It's like, come on, like let them have it. It's whatever. Who does it hurt? Also, Hugh Jackman's legacy is way bigger than Wolverine. I don't know what y'all talking about.
He's going to be fine. All right, y'all. We'd love to know what you all think about this episode. So let us know in the comments below. And with that, we will see you all next time. Take care, everyone. Peace.